again, this is just distraction. It's trying to pretend as though what he was really going after was because they're socialists or they have some sort of policies. That's not what he said. He said, go back to the country you came from. Because what this president offers is a vision that says that full American citizenship is for white people. And everybody else has some other lesser form of American citizenship. That's racist. There's no other term to describe that. And I don't think the Democrats are going to be able to counter that message in the next election unless they can name it and speak about it clearly. And I think that we're seeing the congressman we saw today struggling, to do that very thing. I do think, obviously, Donald Trump is currently the president and has sort of captured the Republican Party, Trumpified the Republican Party. Do you think we have to ask ourselves what the future of the Republican Party is? Is it really tweets like this, or is it a vision offered by people like Will Hurd, who sat here earlier and denounced those comments while still adhering to traditional conservative values?
The report included unsubstantiated claims that Russian intelligence compiled a dossier on Mr. Trump during visits to Moscow. The website BuzzFeed then published a 35-page cache of memos from the alleged dossier, including a claim of sexual activity caught on a Moscow hotel room surveillance camera. The New York Times and other major news organizations said they had been aware of the information for months, but could not verify the claims. What do you make of this report?
Right. So for the moment, the real story is the allegations themselves are unverified. They're obviously quite salacious in nature. The real story is that the intelligence community thought it was appropriate to brief the President of the United States and the President-elect. That means that serious people are taking this seriously. That's different than saying that the intelligence community believes the allegations or have substantiated them. But this is a matter that is not simply a matter of fake news or something that we should disregard. Clearly, it passes some degree of preliminary credibility. President-elect Trump today seemed to suggest that he believes the intelligence community leaked this, saying it would be a blot if they had done so. There's absolutely no indication that the intelligence community is the source of the document. BuzzFeed, the organization that published this document, this is actually not even an intelligence community document. It is a private company. It's not even classified material. And so a little bit there is a suspicion that once again Donald Trump is using his personal attacks on the intelligence community a little bit to divert attention away from the substance of the allegations.
I just keep thinking about the person who wakes up today in Northern Virginia to drive to the Bureau, who is working on investigating whether the president's campaign was colluding with a foreign adversary.
Look, I'm sure there's an element of sort of surrealism to it. That said, I have every confidence that the men and women of the intelligence community, the FBI, are going to wake up every day and sort of do their jobs to the best of their ability.
Do you have that it won't be compromised? They could do this independently?
So I think that there will be warning signs, right? I think that if those career staff start to feel as though they are not able to conduct their work with integrity, we're going to see more leaks. We're going to see more signals to the public that, hey, there's something wrong here.
Mueller is moving supposedly quickly to try to wrap things up. He's going to be getting, presumably, the written answers to his questions on collusion. Where do you see this moving?
So a little bit, we're reading the tea leaves here. It would not be surprising if we saw a number of indictments, coming from this point. There's also reports that potentially Mueller is sort of in the final sprint in terms of authoring this report and deciding whether or not it'll be shared to Congress. The issue of the written questions does put Trump in a difficult position because there are questions that have been reported that Mueller is interested in which the president actually, even though he can sort of be careful in the written terms, there's no good answer for him. Either he has to admit to something that is legally problematic, or he has to not tell the truth, or he has to admit to something that is going to cause him political damage. And so even whenever we're in this really careful space of only having to require response to written questions, this still is a really perilous thing for the president.
But his team of lawyers are drafting those written answers.
Sure, I think the issue is whether or not the facts are on their side or not. Certainly those questions have been very, very carefully designed in order to elicit precisely the information that Mueller and his team are after. The letter certainly is remarkable. It's not especially surprising, and that's that if you actually look at the Mueller report, there are multiple instances in which Mueller makes quite clear that the president's conduct, in his opinion, meets every single statutory element for a crime of obstruction of justice. And in a subset of those, he says that he can't identify any legal or constitutional defenses. That's Robert Mueller tiptoeing right up to the line, but just not reaching that sort of final conclusion of, and therefore the president has actually committed committed the crime of obstruction of justice. This was an area in which we really saw Bill Barr fall short in his testimony before Congress last week. He attempted to make sort of a substantive argument of why he rendered that conclusion that the president had not obstructed justice, even though Robert Mueller said essentially he was preserving the record so that the question could essentially be evaluated whenever the president left office and therefore was amenable to prosecution. Barr's sort of defense, it was wrong as a matter of law, even though it was sort of carefully caveated. And to the extent the Attorney General was acting like the president's defense attorney, he didn't do an especially good job or make a convincing argument in light of really overwhelming facts. Myself and sort of analysts like me may have made a mistake in overly legalizing things, talking about the Russia investigation and the Mueller report and its findings, both when the report came out and as we were learning about it in real time, through this very legalistic lens of, were the statutory elements met? And here's the elements of obstruction of justice. And can we check that box? And could we prosecute him in a court of law? Because that was something concrete to point to understand this completely unprecedented, norm-shattering thing we were seeing, and we were seeing the president do. And the problem is, of course, that's not really the task for Congress. And the question isn't really whether or not every element of obstruction of justice is met so the president can be prosecuted and put in jail.
Right.
It's whether or not this is acceptable